Hello, everyone, and welcome to Out of This World. I'm your host, Jamie Hanshaw, and I'm here with the beautiful, the one and only Kristin Lagan. Hello, Kristin.
Hello.
How are you?
Grand.
Good,
Wonderful.
good.
Yeah.
Today, we are going to be talking about guts
My
and
favorite subject.
poo and bowels and your mind and how all of these things are connected. And I was just thinking about my priest, Father Marcus, would always tell this story when they were children and they would fight and yell at each other and they would scream, "I hate your guts." And that was something that was a core memory for him. So he turned it around and he would give homilies about we need to love not just from our hearts, but from our guts, our like everything we have, all of it. And that's how Christ loved us. And we need to love each other from our guts. So this show is all about how much I love your guts. And we're going to teach you what your guts need to be healthy and happy, because this connection between your personality and what's going on in your guts is so profound and new that it needs exploring. And tonight we are going to talk about food deserts, rat studies, the mind-gut connection, probiotics, prebiotics, all the biotics, and all of your microbiome that make up you. Because this book was saying about 50% of the cells in your body are not human cells. They're bacteria, good and bad bacteria. So half of the things going on inside of you aren't even of you, and they can influence your personality. They can influence your mood. They can influence how you see the world and how you interact with other people. So let's just dive right in and start with...
Well, what do you have?
I was just going to say, so my history with food is funny because growing up in the 90s, you are surrounded by so much sugar. And I remember going down to 7-Eleven every time you got your like little dollar allowance or whatever. I would walk a block to 7-Eleven and I would get a Slurpee and a Snickers bar and a Reese's Pieces and a this and a that. And it's just all sugar, all chemical.
All processed, packaged. Yeah.
And sugar is really the gateway drug for kids, right? It's like almost like crack for children.
Yeah.
It's that addictive. So, I grew up, and when you start to hit puberty and stuff, if you're eating all that sugar, you're gonna get chunky. So I was chunky as a little teenager.
No way.
Oh yes, very chunky. And then I grew up a little more and I didn't want to be, a real fat adult. So I was like, I'm going to start eating healthy and I'm going to exercise. And what I thought in my little, 13-year-old brain on how to lose weight, I'm just going to stop eating.
Oh, yeah. That's smart. Yeah.
The size that I want to be. And I'm going to do sit-ups and crunches and I'm going to walk around the block 100 times until I'm skinny. Right? Like Kate Moss. That was what was.
Oh, yeah. The supermodel era.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I remember I was in middle school and the big thing was like, you needed to have like your bottom rib removed or like your back wisdom or molars so that you would have that like shrunken in look like Kate Moss. Yeah.
Bones.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a very unhealthy relationship with food that I developed really early just because of, your childhood diet. What are you eating in the 90s? Like Gushers and Fruit Loops and Lucky Charms. And, even if you think you're eating something healthy, it's like, what's those fruit roll-ups?
Oh yeah.
This is a good healthy snack. It's a fruit roll-up, right? But then I became an adult and I was put on birth control for hormones. I wasn't even married yet, but the doctor was like, take all these birth controls and we'll see how it works out. And so that kind of just made my system go haywire crazy. I gained a lot of weight from that as an adult. So I was like, what's going on? I didn't know hormones had anything to do with weight loss or weight gain at that time. This is late 90s, early 2000s. And so I started reading these books about nutrition. So I read one called Fast Food Nation and one called The Food Revolution and a couple
Mm-hmm.
more. And you start to realize like fast food is so disgusting,
Yeah.
from the way they source it to the preparation, all the ingredients that go into it. And it's just like processed to the max. And it's not even food anymore, basically, when it makes it to your plate. And you can even go deeper into that, into like big things like McDonald's, if you really want to go down that rabbit hole, that maybe there's like not just animals in there.
Yeah. And then we will touch base on later on about what that kind of food does to your gut once it's in your gut.
Right. So this was even before I started to learn about like heavy duty conspiracies. I'm getting this in my head, like they are like trying to kill us with food. And fast food is not even food, it's a weapons system.
It really is. Yeah.
And so this is getting my brain charged up for other things I'm going to learn down the road. But I'm thinking in the back of my mind, like this all can't be just greed. You know, because when people try to reason out why things are the way they are, they always go back to, oh, it's just greedy fat cats that want
Yeah.
more money. But then you realize, no, there's actually a war on your health because they want you DEAD, right? Period.
Yeah. And that can be physically or spiritually or emotionally. I mean, we don't have to be completely like DEAD, but if you're operating around like a zombie, you are DEAD.
Yeah, your brain DEAD.
And then you're prematurely DYING.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's so true. So let's see.
I don't even know if these words are bad. I'm just spelling them.
I don't either, but I hear people spell it out or say other things. So I'm just going to be super careful because this is a brand new channel.
Yeah. And we're just going to start spelling everything we say.
Anything controversial, I'm just going to spell it.
Take your pen and paper out, everyone, and just jot down the letters we say.
Right.
Really quickly.
Right. So let's start with your interesting article about the rats and the performance.
Well, first of all, I kind of want to give some definitions if you don't mind.
Okay.
Just for like people who are like, why are we talking about our stomach? You know, like, why are we talking about the gut? Well, I want to like make sure everyone understands like why this is important. Why are we bringing this up? Why are we dedicating an entire podcast to this? And your gut, you've got to understand it is considered your second brain. Sometimes even now they're starting to call it the first brain. And then this is our second brain because they are so intricately connected that I was listening to a podcast today and this was just such a great visualization. But like when we get caught up in our head about something and we start thinking about something, how often do we start feeling nauseous in our stomach? And then we get butterflies and then we've got to go to the bathroom and we're like, you know, we're not even consciously or cognitively thinking about, oh, I'm stuck up here and it's affecting my gut or my stomach. Mm-hmm. But that's what's going on. They're communicating, they're talking all the time. And so it is a two-way biochemical signaling that takes place in the in our gastrointestinal tract, and it also controls our nervous system. So our nervous system is a really big deal. We need a calm nervous system. Mm-hmm. Everyone needs to calm down, mm-hmm. and that no one thinks about like, well, how do I calm down? I need to meditate. Do I need to pray? Do I need to stare at the wall? Do I need to talk slow? It's like, no, you just really need to think about what is my gut and my brain talking about to each other? Like, what's my environment look like? And it's vital in your microbiome. So like, let's think about your gut, you know, like your stomach.
I have.
Thank you, Jamie. Yes.
There's your guts right there. Look how big that is though. Right?
That's a big gut.
Like that's like a big percentage of what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big part of your body.
Yeah.
Like, wowzers.
And I thought this was interesting. Where is it? The main part of your digestive system is a long tube, the alimentary canal that runs from mouth to anus. So one long tube goes from
That's so weird to think,
the other.
like,
Yeah,
ugh.
they're connected.
But it's true, you know, like I start thinking about like that horror film.
Oh,
Centipede.
Centipede.
I can't watch it. I cannot watch it, but I know the concept behind it. I'm like, it just grosses me out. Like, totally grosses me out. And like, don't the people die in it because they're receiving the other person's toxins? But like, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But it's like the wrong way they're receiving the toxins. Ugh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't watch it.
I'm not. Okay. No. Ugh. So in your microbiome, which Jamie just showed us, like inside your intestines is kind of like it's called a gut flora. So I want you to think of that as like a rainforest or a forest of a garden of some sorts. And so the types of food we eat, or, you know, if we take a probiotic, we either kill the bacteria, which makes up the gut flora, or we're kind of like seeding it and weeding it out. So killing the bad, watering the good. And what we want to do is water the good. We want the good bacteria to be vibrant and growing. And we want to have a lush rainforest in our gut flora, in our guts. Okay. So that would be your microbiome. And this is like so foreign to most people that are like, I don't even think about my gut. Like I just eat and then I poop stuff out that my body doesn't want. Right. And it's like, no, it's so much more than that. And so we have it's alive. Like you literally have living bacteria in your gut right now. And a little side note on this is like when you take an antibiotic, antibiotics are so dangerous to us because it kills not just the bad bacteria in your gut, but the good ones too. So like sometimes, you know, like when you're a kid and your parents are like, oh, my kid's sick again. And then they take you to the doctor and the doctor puts you on an antibiotic. Think about how you're jacking up your gut flora from like just being a little kid and not knowing, and your parents are not knowing, and they're giving you antibiotics all the time. You're really messing up the way that your intestines, your gut flora, your microbiome works and how that signals to your brain. So we literally are affected the rest of our life by pretty much how many antibiotics we took as a kid.
Yeah.
Big pharma coming in hot.
Yes. And when we get into this book, I made some notes about how important it is to inherit the microbiota from your mother.
Oh, like the mitochondria.
Yes.
All right.
First, let's talk about the rats, and then we'll get through the food, and then we'll do the book. So
the rats. So in my graduate studies, I had to do like a paper, a peer-reviewed type of paper. And we had always were studying rats. And this one in particular was about aggression in rats. And I kind of didn't know what I was getting into. And then all of a sudden it just started linking together. And I was like, whoa, I'm super interested in what's happening here. So let me tell you what it's called. It's a study called the activation of serotonin neurotransmission during the performance of aggressive behaviors in rats. So the summary of this entire article is that high aggression in the rats was observed with and linked to lower serotonin, which is 5-HT neurotransmission. And it said that they would test the hypothesis through, just different treatments with these rats. let's see, they would do control rats, and then they would put low aggression rats into social confrontations and see how the rats behaved. And the results showed the performance of aggressive behavior increases the the 5-HT, which is the serotonin activity, and that preventing this activation inhibits expression of aggressive behavior. So, okay. So why is that important? So we've got rats who have low serotonin, which is that 5-HT. If you ever go to like Whole Foods or you can get it at any type of supplement store, but they sell you like a supplement, just says 5-HT. That is serotonin. So serotonin, we think it's a hormone, and we think it's produced in our brain, and it is in small quantities. The most of it is produced in our guts. And serotonin is our happy. It makes us happy. It makes us feel good. It makes us not be on defense most of the time. We have a natural proclivity sometimes to just like, well, why are you talking to me like that? Or why'd you cut me off? Or what do you mean? Why are you talking to me in that tone? And it's like, whoa, chill, girl. You need some 5-HT. You need to go get you a supplement. And realistically, it's like low serotonin is being released in the body. And so what I correlated that with, and through just a bunch of research, which I didn't just like make this up on my own, but there is this idea of food deserts that came about. And I think it was like the late or early 2000s. And it was a very like liberal agenda. There's food deserts. There's food deserts are basically where mostly low income demographics, usually inner city, urban, or super duper rural areas, they don't have access to good foods. They don't have access to grocery stores that carry good foods.
Yes. I watched that video you sent me about Vice, about the food.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it reminded me of, if you ever take a road trip, you will quickly learn, like if you're into healthy eating and you have the things that you like in your grocery store that supplies the good stuff, and you try to take a road trip, you're going to find out that there is nothing to eat out there. Like that holds up to any of your standards. And it's not going to make you feel disgusting afterwards. Like you have to either pack your own food or find a big city with a Whole Foods or something like that, or a better grocery store. Those are really your only options. And a lot of times we ended up eating, like the last resort was like Cracker Barrel, because
you can still get greens or something.
Those are everywhere, but at least you can get a meal that looks like food.
Right.
So yeah, food desert is a real thing, and you will find it if you embark on an adventure out of your comfort zone. You can drive for, hundreds of miles and there's nothing to eat.
Yeah. And so that exists like between cities, but also if you think about, if you live in a big city, maybe you're listening, you live in a big city, you can go to maybe a lower income poverty type of inner city area, and you can notice that there's not really nice grocery stores. But what's on every single corner? McDonald's, Wendy's, Taco Bell, Checkers. I mean, every type of fast food restaurant you can imagine is accessible to every single person living in that neighborhood, right?
It's affordable and accessible and convenient.
Because they're on a budget. They're on an extreme budget. So you can feed a family of 5 on $10 if you go to McDonald's, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, how are you supposed to? You're supposed to travel across town, drop $30 on dinner for the night for your family of 5 versus like, I only have $10. Like, what am I supposed to do with this?
Mm-hmm.
So it's called a food desert because, let's be real, those fast food chains are not giving food.
No. And if you look deeper into it, all of their corporate logos have esoteric meanings that you can link to, Freemasonry or other conspiratorial groups.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and their brainwash, I mean, just the manipulation itself with marketing and colors and the way that they place certain restaurants next to each other. But the point of the study was that they started studying human adults basically in these food deserts, like they did the rats in the study we just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And they all had low serotonin production because they didn't have the proper nutrition to allow the body to produce the right amount of serotonin. So what happens? That means those adults are naturally, they have a trait characteristic of being more aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
And so what do we have in these kind of low income demographic areas? We have more crime. We have more domestic abuse. We have children who aren't going to school or skipping school or just getting into trouble in general. And I truly believe it's the majority of it is low nutrition.
Oh, yeah. We were talking about this back in like 2010. Mm-hmm. And a lot of shows that we did were about food, and grow your own food was an advice, a mantra for us, because we knew that we were going to be having these shortages in the future. And also, like, the stuff you get is just laden with chemicals, glyphosate, all kinds of.
Here's a spoonful of Roundup for you. Like, just go ahead and put that in your body.
So we did a lot of shows about growing your own food. We had people from Australia come and show us how to do permaculture. We lived in Kansas at that time, so it was a very agrarian kind of community.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
Yeah, and I had a worm farm, because the worms produce the best kind of fertilizer with their juices that come.
Worm juice. Got it.
Yeah, so we throw our compost in the worm farm and then unplug the bottom of it, and this like brown juice would come out, and we'd bottle it, and then you use that for fertilizer, and it makes your plants grow like crazy.
Really? So, yeah. I'm not to that level at all.
We were on this a long time ago, and grow your own food was a big solution for us. So,
I mean, I think the more you know, the why the hell not? You know, like we need to teach ourselves all this stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, what it did for me, this study or this research paper I did, it gave me a lot of compassion or a deeper understanding as to why, you know, some people are lazy, you know, and so sometimes we like to judge people in certain neighborhoods, and we're like, why don't you just get off your lazy bum and go to work, you know? And it's like, they literally, a lot of people don't have any motivation to. They don't see the reason, like, why should I go to work? And it's because they lack low serotonin. Like, they don't have that feel good, happy, hopeful feeling that is produced when you have a healthy diet, or you get the proper amount of sunlight, or you're drinking good water. So
that really is a part of how some people have a privilege that they don't even recognize.
Right. Yeah.
Have access to healthy food and fresh food. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's crazy. So like you were saying before, the gut bacteria and the brain function, the lining of the gut produces so much information for the brain. Like you said, it could be argued that the gut is the primary brain. Right?
Isn't that wild?
Yeah. And so like that brings a whole new meaning to when you say I have a gut feeling about something.
Ooh, yeah. Right? Yeah.
And so you said, yeah, antibiotics leads to 17% increased risk of anxiety disorder in the next 12 months. So if you have a sickness and you had a round of antibiotics, then you are at increased risk for anxiety, depression. It says here 2 courses in 12 months leads to major depression going up 45%.
Wow.
That's pretty serious, because it's, you know, your serotonin, right? I
didn't, you know, when I started getting into kind of like conspiracies or like the food, like what's up with the food and why is the food bad? And, you know, no one taught me. I was a child of the 90s. I just remember watching TV and being advertised to, like, this is what you eat. And this is what I asked my mom to get me at the store. And she did. she didn't know any better. We didn't know anything about health and what these processed foods were doing to our bodies. So when I got a little bit older and I learned about, what were we just talking about? What food? Antibiotics. I remember like, why would antibiotics be bad for a child or for an adult? And I just remember people that I highly respected were saying, do not take antibiotics. So I was like, okay, I won't take antibiotics, but I never knew really why until, just a few years ago. It's like, oh, it really does. It kills I think it kills like your intuition, that ability to pick up. Yeah. So it's almost like the fluoride is killing our intuitive, like our mental intuitiveness. And then we have the food, the antibiotics, the medication killing our gut intuitiveness.
Yeah, exactly. So that you're more easily believing lies because you have no more gut feelings about it.
You can't see through the mess anymore or feel through the mess anymore.
Right. So we read this book called The Mind Gut Connection. She's got one too. And this is Emerin Meyer, MD. And the first chapter I thought was really interesting because he starts out talking about something that we talked about a couple weeks ago, is that they used to look at the human body like a complicated machine with a finite number of independent parts that you could just replace. Or, if you learned how all the mechanics of it work, then you know how the body works. So he's talking about like the mechanical nature of science and medicine. And then for the past maybe like 40 years, they've been trying to correct that and looking at the body in a more holistic way. So he goes on to say that the way they battle cancer in a scorched earth approach using toxic chemicals and surgical interventions is really not the way to go anymore. And that medicine and science never paid much attention to the malfunction of the brain was the primary cause of all these problems. So this show that you sent me to watch, she says the gut is responsible for all non-communicable diseases. Right? That's huge.
It's huge.
So it's not just different parts of your engine breaking down, but your brain. And this is what esoteric literature talks about also, like the mind over matter and how that affects your body.
I guess it would be like as above, so below.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like that could be applied to your body in a way.
So let's see. The healthcare in United States is atrocious. Everybody knows that. We are the highest in cost, but we are 37th in overall level of health. So we're spending all of our money to feel better, and it's all for nothing because we don't even know what we're doing. And he's saying we're failing because our models for understanding the human body are outdated. So obesity, heart disease, cancers cost us an exorbitant amount of money, $620 billion a year. And I don't even know anyone that doesn't have gut problems almost, or hasn't in the past.
I mean, mine presented itself maybe in like my mid-20s. I was really, and I was a little ashamed of this, to be honest, but I thought I had a gluten intolerance. And I became one of those girls who would go to the restaurant and they would say, oh, I'd say, my stomach would go in intense pain if I ate any type of breads. And so I knew something was happening with my digestion of breads, but I also knew I didn't have celiac disease, but I also was really truthfully scared, fearful to eat bread. I mean, scared. fear because of how much pain it caused me. So there was kind of this shame if I went out in public and I would ask for gluten-free anything. And people are like, oh, you just want to be a fad. You just want to be cool and not get the regular bread. And then waitresses or waiters would say, oh, do you have like celiac? And I was like, no, I'm just sensitive. And and like, it was real. I mean, it truly was real. And I think it's just because I had not paid attention to my gut at all up into that point. And then it was like, my body just sent off this like alarm system to me, like something's wrong in your gut and you need to figure this out. So I just gave my body a break from having to digest breads. And then I started really taking care of my consumption of food, like being mindful of like, what am I eating? And is this hard for my body to digest? I never thought about that before.
When I was in my 20s and reading all these health books, they were kind of anti-meat in the way that they were targeting like industrial farming, which is really gross. So, you know, the way they cramp all the cows together and the way they milk them and they have sores on their udders, which puts pus in the milk and, you know, all those nasty stuff. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to be a vegetarian. You know, that's a safer thing because cows have all these antibiotics in them and the milk is contaminated and it's, pasteurized, you know, it's not even healthy for you. So I'm going out and I'm buying soy milk.
I did the same thing.
And I'm doing all of the cringy things that people do now. Cause I've always
Beyond Beef burgers. I did all that.
So every morning I eat, or I used to eat Fiber One cereal.
Oh, so you still do this? You just said you still do this.
No. Fiber One, I think it's Kellogg or General Mills or one of those nasty cereals. Okay. So it's like pellets. It looks like mouse pellets.
Yeah.
Like a hamster or something. Right. So this is what I ate every single morning because I thought I need fiber. I need 20 grams of fiber every day. And it was gross and I didn't lose weight. I didn't feel better. I was still bloated. I was still stopped up. But I'm like, I'm eating all this fiber. Why can't I digest things?
Wow.
Yeah. So
it's wild. So what I learned through a little bit of my research was that to have a healthy gut biome, there's 3 things you have to consume. And one of those is tryptophan, which is what is found in turkey meat. And it's also found in eggs. And what tryptophan does is it helps produce serotonin and melatonin, which we talked about last episode, which is also produced with sunlight. So all this is like kind of coming together, right? There's also tyrosine, which is in seeds and almonds, and it is what helps produce dopamine. And that's your kind of like your motivation, gets you going, makes you want to go do things, right? And then the third one is called indole 3 lactic acid, which is also ILA. And those are kind of like fermented foods. So sauerkraut, kefir, kimchi. And that is a really good, that's kind of, I would say the fermented foods is kind of controversial. I mean, there's some people in the health realms that are like, oh, it doesn't matter. But I know that my mother and my grandmother and like my grandparents were all about like vinegar and fermented foods. Like even today, my mom will soak cucumbers in apple cider vinegar and she'll put salt in it and it's so good. And she eats that probably every week. Like it's such like an old Southern thing to do, but
my mom used to do that too. Yeah.
And like, I knew like, a grandpa that used to do that. And, I personally love it, but these are all like super healthy people and they're in their 80s. So I'm like, okay, there's something going on that's like, they know what's happening. And it's also an ILA. So they probably don't know, they're creating a healthy gut flora by doing the fermentation and like feeding that your gut that every day or, every other day.
Yeah, it's crazy. So this says your gut has capabilities that surpass all your other organs and even rival your brain. It has its own nervous system called the enteric nervous system, or ENS, which is the second brain, and the immune cells in your gut make up the largest component of your body's immune system.
Wow.
So if you're killing all that with antibiotics, it's like kind of counterproductive, right?
Absolutely.
This was crazy. So if you spread your guts out,
yeah, it goes like to the moon or something.
Flat? No, it's the size of a basketball court.
Okay. So not the moon. Got it.
Almost to the moon.
That you heard it here first, guys. It goes all the way to the moon and back.
But isn't that crazy? Like all the little folds and everything, and the way it's all like crunched in there. If you spread it out,
isn't your brain like that too? If you were like to spread your brain out, like,
or the little dendrites or something. Yeah.
So I found this interesting. You know how like when you get a cut on your body, even if you don't do anything about it, like the white blood cells will come to the rescue or the red blood cell. I don't know which blood cells, but one of them comes to the rescue and starts like healing the cut. And, obviously we can help and put like Neosporin on it and, clean it out. But even if you don't do that, your body is going to heal itself. It's kind of like when you get like a splinter and you don't get it out, your body naturally pushes it out because it's a foreign object. So in your gut, think of your gut as like, say you cut it, right? Your gut is naturally going to try to build itself into a healthy position because that's what it's built to do. Just like our body wants it to be at its optimal state. And even if you have a damaged gut, it's still going to try its best to build a healthy gut for you. But if it doesn't have the proper nutrition, or if it doesn't have the proper bacteria, it's trying its best to do its best for you, but you're not giving it the building blocks it needs to build a healthy gut flora for yourself. So it's almost like we kind of have to take responsibility in giving our body the building blocks, like that's what she called it, like the building blocks of being able to like create the healthy gut flora it needs to have.
Yeah, because it says here it's the largest storage facility for serotonin, like you were talking about. It plays the crucial role in the vital function of sleep, appetite, pain sensitivity, mood, and overall well-being. And then they say gut feelings are stored in vast databases in the brain, which can later be accessed when making decisions. So they started in 2016. President Obama started the Microbiome Initiative. And they've been learning all about this since for less than 10 years. So this is pretty new. And then, this book was talking about, so when you're a baby, you have low diversity in your microbiome, right? And
okay.
When you're an adult, you have the most. And then when you're older, you have less again. So you kind of peak, at your overall.
Is that because we're not eating like a variety of different foods, or did it say?
It just says like overall. Well, this is children with like neurodevelopmental disorders.
Okay.
Have low diversity. And then, so like autism and stuff like that. And then the seniors that have low diversity have like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's.
Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah. So it's good to have diversity.
Oh yeah. You need a big farm.
Jungle.
Yes, a jungle.
Yeah.
So it says low diversity coincides with a vulnerability window for neurodevelopmental disorders, autism, anxiety, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's.
just kind of thought I like definitions. I like people to like track us. And if you're unfamiliar with what serotonin is, let me just tell you, it's a chemical that carries messages between nerve cells in the brain and throughout your body. And it plays a key role in body functions such as mood, sleep, digestion, nausea, wound healing, bone health, blood clotting, and sexual desire.
Yeah.
So
this book says that low tryptophan and low serotonin can lead to sex addictions.
no way.
Yeah. So
okay, everyone, Jamie read the entire book. I did not.
So if you have problems with those, COOMERS, it could be that you're not getting enough serotonin.
I believe that. I mean, think about
those happy chemicals with the COOM.
If you have a diet, let's think of the average diet: chips, pizza. Let me run out and grab some fast food really quick. I don't have time to cook a meal. Like, I get it. I don't like to cook, but what I will do is I pretty much every day I'll make a shake. And it's kind of like my breakfast, but it has everything I need in it. So if I don't eat healthy the rest of the day, not that I don't eat healthy, but sometimes like you can't eat healthy. You can't eat like the things you want to eat, but I try to like get that into my body so that I have, it has a probiotic in it, and it has spirulina, and it's like, it's kind of gross, but it's like, I know my body needs it, and I know my gut's going to be really happy if I do this every day. And I'd be happy to show everyone, if you're interested, my ingredients for my shake, because it's pretty fun.
Okay.
I even do bee pollen in it, and collagen and fiber. That's where I get my fiber. So yeah. Do
you want to just say it right now?
I mean, I'd have to see it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. I'd have to show you guys like here's my protein shake, and then here's my collagen, and then here's my probiotic, and all that.
Oh, okay. So here it says, do microbes manipulate our brains to make us seek out foods that are best for them? So that was so interesting. Like when you're hungry and you're like, what do I feel like? Is that actually you, or is that your little microbes? Because not all of your bacteria is beneficial, because there can be bad bacteria. Like, I want sugar, I want carbs, I want this, I want that. So it's not.
And they're alive. They're living.
Yes. And they're saying, feed me, feed me. Like, what is that? Candida wants the sugar. And
so like at 2:00 every day, I always want sugar, and I call it my sugar parasite. And I'm like, no, sugar parasite, you will not get the sugar.
Yeah. You got to starve the bad ones and feed the good ones. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's see. This also talks about resilience against insults and perturbations. So like you said, things that bother you maybe wouldn't be so bothersome if your microbiome was healthier and more resilient. Right?
Yeah.
Let's see.
Did you find anything about like leaky gut syndrome?
Yeah, it talks about that. And then, okay, so first off, it's saying the only currently available way to restore gut microbial diversity in some patients is to transfer of intact microbiota from the feces of a healthy donor.
Okay, so Jamie, pretend you have Crohn's disease.
Okay.
So say, I have Crohn's disease. Okay. Do you want my poop? Because I'll give you my poop.
That is very generous of you. Only you.
Because I have great gut flora.
Okay.
So
yes. I will accept your poop.
Okay. So we were listening to this podcast, basically, everyone. And there was this guy who had Crohn's disease, and he was really, really sick, and he did all of the traditional medicine route, and nothing was working. And so then his friend was like, I'm going to give you my poop. And the guy was like, what do you mean? And I forgot about this, but Jamie, you reminded me there's like a South Park episode on this too. So this is a thing. And so if you have somebody that has a healthy gut flora, and you can have this tested about like how many good bacteria you have and bad bacteria you have, but he pooped and then he gave it to his friend over an allotted amount of time. And then this guy, I don't know how he got it into his digestion system. He didn't
doctors
eat
weren't
it.
helping with this procedure?
No, this was all like by himself.
Oh, wow.
I think he gave himself
matters
like
into your own hands, so to speak.
yeah. I think he gave himself like an enema to get it into his like body.
Oh, weird.
Because you can't eat it, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And so he did that, and it reproduced because he didn't have a microbiome, like a healthy microbiome. So his friend's bacteria that's alive, he was injecting that into his body, and then it created his new microbiome. And then he, like, they're trying not to correlate this with like the Crohn's disease being gone, but like the same time the Crohn's disease was gone, you know? So it's like all of these diseases that we have that are chronic in our body can probably be cured if we had the right gut flora happening for us. Mm-hmm. But that is a real thing.
It sounds gross, but it makes a lot of sense. And
I know.
If you know the donor, I guess, in a medical environment, like, and if it heals you.
I think there are like places now, like holistic doctors or non-traditional type doctors that offer that as a service, but no.
So people can have microbiomes that make them happier people. So this is saying the microbes do more than just listen. They communicate with your brain, and they send signals back to your brain about how they're doing.
Oh, so they're like our little friends.
Yeah. Let's see. Gut microbiota has been linked to depression. And then the SSRIs, that's affects your serotonin, which is what you're talking about, like Prozac, Paxil, Celexa, all those.
Yeah,
I don't know exactly how it works. They reuptake inhibitors. So like your body like tries to take the serotonin back, and they stop that. And so it's just like floating around making you happy.
Yeah. Okay. There's a great YouTube that shows like a cartoon image of how that inhibits the production of serotonin or dopamine in these SSRIs. And it's wild because some people just don't produce this stuff at all. And it's kind of like, I don't think doctors are like, well, what's your gut look like? You know, they're just like, I'm sad, I'm depressed.
Yeah.
Like, oh, here's a prescription for you.
Right. It says here 95% of the body's serotonin is contained in specialized cells in the gut. And nobody is talking about that. They're just talking about the brain.
The brain, your mental brain. Yeah.
So the interface between the gut and the nervous system is key to our physical and mental well-being. Our food becomes our emotions. Let's see.
Yeah, I listed like, how do you improve your gut? And the number one thing is food. I mean, just in general, it's the things that we want to eat that taste really good to us. And, you know, those pleasurable cravings that we're like, oh, I just really want pizza right now. We have to exert some type of discipline over that. Because it's not what's best for our body. And that discipline can be extended over so many different types of temptations. But I think that's honestly why fasting is such a great discipline, is because we're not allowing our body to divulge in these pleasurable temptations. Like, I want pizza right now. It's like, well, maybe not.
Yes, telling yourself no is one of the first things you have to learn
Yeah.
in spiritual
Also,
life.
to minimize stress, stress is a really big killer of the gut biome.
Yep.
Because it's killing our nervous system. Our nervous system is like telling our gut, like, mayday, mayday, like something's happening in this in our system, and it starts breaking down the gut biome. And so by just walking 15 to 20 minutes a day, it helps start regulating your bowel system to get those toxins out of your body every single day, which is super important too.
I thought this was interesting. They took fecal matter from some mice who were extroverted and they gave it to mice that were timid, and it changed their personality.
Whoa.
And they took similar experiment with like overweight mice and fit mice, and they could switch what was which with just their gut microbiome.
Well, think about it. Like when you're fit and you're working out, don't you start eating healthier? And honestly, I start not eating as much. Like I start like kind of cutting like, I think your stomach actually does shrink if you don't indulge, or if you're not gluttonous with food, because that's so easy to do.
Yeah. So here's a picture about how your emotions affect
I like that one.
how you digest. Like
angry.
Yes, if you're angry, it all shuts down. Like you're saying, stress interferes with your appetite and your digestion and the way that everything is absorbed. So we have to be super mindful about what mood we're in when we're eating. And that's just as important as what we're eating is how we feel about life while we're eating. So he's saying, like, you know, if your stomach is tied up in knots, you have gut wrenching experience, you have butterflies. The gut is the theater in which the drama of emotion plays out. So he says, just like you can read a facial expression when you get mad, your face like, your gut does the same thing. It clenches, it gets angry, it gurgles, it complains. You know what I mean? It sends different biles and stuff.
Yeah.
So
it literally is like they're best friends. They like hold hands every day, and you have to remember that. They're besties.
Yeah. So the gut is the theater that plays out all of your emotions. And if you could see it, you could read it just as easily as you could a facial expression.
I can't find it in here right now, but I did read like an animal study about how animals do the same thing. Like a more aggressive animal is obviously their brain and their gut work the same way. But they also release serotonin, and like a more aggressive animal might always be in this fear of like, I'm starving, or I'm trying to find it so I can talk a little bit more about it, because it was really fascinating, but it's a lot like how we operate.
So this doctor had a patient, the guy who wrote this book, he had a patient who couldn't stop vomiting, and he had these bouts of, he would just throw up until he's exhausted and he'd have to go to the ER and they'd knock him out. And that was the only thing that would stop his vomiting.
Oh man.
They figured out that he had a problem with like a stress chemical from his guts that he couldn't switch off once it started until he went to sleep. And then when they fixed that, well, actually, it was his mom that it says doctors repeated failure to diagnose him correctly. And then his mom went on the internet with no medical training and found out what was wrong. So it's like, you really can help yourself.
You can, yeah.
Doctors aren't omniscient, right?
Yeah.
And a little bit of study, you can find out what's going on. So this was interesting. The housekeeping that happens in your guts when you stop eating is super important, because like when you go to sleep or when you fast and all your food is processed, then it starts this process of sweeping out all of the extra stuff and the toxins, and it cleans it and it bathes it and it gets it ready for more food. And this is super important that you stop eating at a certain time at night to let this cycle happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. It's super important to let your body digest the food you've been giving it all day. Like it has to digest, and then it really needs a time to rest itself.
Let's see.
So
Okay,
I did find the animal thing. This is just a side. This is just kind of interesting about animals, because a lot of people are like, oh, my dog is angry or jealous. And they do have emotions the same way we do, like affection and jealousy. And we can see that in our animals, and it's super cute. But it does say that dogs and other pets are clearly emotional, but they're not self-aware. So no matter how human their emotion expressions appear, they're not in the same league as you. So that is kind of good. I know this isn't about our gut, but like when I leave my cats, I feel really sad. Mm-hmm. Like, are they sad? Are they upset? Are they depressed? Are they getting angry at me because I have to go to work every day? And there's
no eat when I'm not around.
Like, yeah, exactly. And it's like, you're fine. We're all good.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay. So the gut cells that you have could dictate how your personality turns out. You could be chronically angry, anxious, because you are using a script that dates back to childhood and may play out dark plots day after day. So abuse, neglect, not enough nutrition, all of this shapes what kind of person you are going to be.
That's intense.
Emotional operating programs written in our genes. And like you just said, when the gut gets stressed, it is like over. And that's the reason why, like, you know, you could be eating and you hear something like, I lost my appetite. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Now you
go through something traumatic or sad or.
Yeah. So it's not just a mechanical thing that will work however it's going to work, no matter how you feel about things.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. This was super interesting. Hold on. Oh, the gut is the seat of our emotions and our unconscious mind. So if you're into like psychology and Carl Jung and your shadow side, maybe your shadow side is your bad bacteria in your gut.
I think that that's a really good way to put that. Yeah.
The vagus nerve, I hear about that a lot now because a lot of people are stuck in fight or flight because of abuse. So the ways that you can find to calm your vagus nerve are super helpful. And I've heard like ice pack on your chest when you're having a panic attack.
Yeah, temperature regulation is super important there.
Yeah. Also, if you're feeling stressed and you do this like with your breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, and do this with your fingers, that can calm your vagus nerve.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. We need to look up more ways that we can regulate this fight or flight, because that's what the powers that be want to keep us stressed all the time.
Yeah. There was this author, he is kind of considered new age, but he's the first psychologist that ever brought this idea to my perspective. And it was Eckhart Tolle, and he would talk about the pain body and how if we got angry or frustrated, he's like, disassociate yourself from that emotion. Like, oh, you're angry now. Okay, so that's your pain body, and you need to discipline that and bring it back down. And so I remember driving one day and I was listening to this book and somebody cut me off. I was like, why'd you just like in your car, you're like, you're stressed and you're trying to get somewhere. And then I remember like this one section of the interstate, people would just like become the most royal assholes that ever existed in humankind. I mean, they were just like, it's so aggressive in this like one area of the interstate. And I would get I would feel my body getting tense as I approached it every morning on my commute into work.
Mm.
And I started learning about the pain body and, you know, how it's not me and how I can regulate it. And I remember this man I wasn't thinking I'm regulating, but I think I was just thinking about it so much and trying to teach myself new ways of living that this man cut in front of me in this section. And I literally thought to myself, wow, he must be in a hurry. And there was no like defensive mechanism that came to play. And it was just a complete switch of observing what was happening.
Mm.
And once it happened, I was like, whoa,
Nice.
Something's clicked inside of me where I am now regulating versus reacting, which is the fight or flight. Yeah.
Yes. Good. Here it says that 90% of the traffic of the information of your emotions flows from your gut to your brain and not the other way around. So
that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. It's like a little highway.
Mm-hmm. Here's the part about tryptophan. Oh, tryptophan and the brain's arousal network. So that can be interrupted with the proper chemicals if you have problems in that area.
I really think we can help ourselves out a lot by just learning what we're dealing with and saying, okay, I have the self-awareness and the courage to say, I might have a problem in this area of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And then what hormone or what chemical may I be deficient in? And maybe let me experiment on myself a little bit instead of the doctors experimenting on me or fad diets experimenting on me and me just succumbing to those. Like, let me figure this out, you know, just like putting the poop in my body. Like, I mean, I don't know if I want to go do that, but I do think it's a really cool thing that we have this autonomy over our body. What is it? Hold on. My body, my choice. I'm kidding, everyone. But seriously, like I get to choose how I want to medically diagnose and figure out my body.
Well, this book is actually positing the question, like, where is free will and what does it come from? Because if you are a slave to your little microbiomes in there and just doing whatever they want, then that can be a way to hijack your free will.
Ooh, right? Okay.
So here he says, unhealthy memories have an effect on the gut-brain dialogue. Certain repressed adverse childhood experiences can result in psychological problems and physical problems, mental illness, etc. So repressed emotions, and I want to do a show about this, about how the body holds trauma, called The Body Keeps Score, I think it's called. So maybe
that's a huge book. Yeah.
Yeah. But he's,
I've never read that and I've always wanted to. So yes, let's do that. So it forces me to read this book.
Okay, good. So people with like chronic pain, intestinal disorders, constipation, blah, 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 when he psychoanalyzes them and makes them face their past, then their symptoms get better because it's a whole psychoactive problem.
Wow.
Close relationship between a mother's stress level and the way the nervous system of the child will react later in life is huge. And this is something the Orthodox, they pamper moms. Like they will preach that. Your priest will tell you if you are pregnant, nursing moms, they're the queen, okay? You don't stress them out. You let them feel their emotions, right? You let them.
That's beautiful.
Because it doesn't just affect her as an adult, you're also affecting the baby, which affects future generations. So that's why Orthodox moms are so revered and pampered, because they know how important this is.
Wow.
Right.
I didn't know that, but that's beautiful.
Yeah. So stress in the mom creates more anxiety in adults. Some rats that they did studies on, the mom rats were so stressed out that they killed their pups and ate them. So stress can make you a terrible mom. And even this thing that everyone's talking about right now, abortion, is
Ooh,
like
hot button. Yeah.
that stress can make you think that's a good idea.
I don't know. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So it's like a lot of people are involved in the responsibility of making sure that that child comes out a healthy person.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, and this is interesting too. So the mom rats that they stressed out were bad moms, and then the kids of the stressed out mom became bad parents.
Makes sense. Yeah. I mean, if you think about your nervous system, it's almost like a program piece of our body, you know, unless we go in there and we, not to like equate our bodies with like machines, but in this kind of, I'm doing that. Like we can go in and manipulate. We are not a slave to our genetic disposition of like thinking. Like our thinking abilities can be different than what our environment produced us in. And so, like you were saying, like trauma, we can outgrow that trauma. It can be part of our story, but it doesn't have to be our story. And we don't have to carry that around with us the rest of our lives and be a victim to it.
Exactly.
I think that takes a lot of work. And it also takes a deep understanding and a foundation of like, why is my nervous system important? And what is my vagus nerve? And what's my gut flora? Why is that important? You really have to start understanding your body in order to change your story in general.
You have to learn how to be adept at processing toxicity, because that is something that's going to be thrown at you your whole life. And you have to learn how to get it out. Right.
It's like, I remember my old youth pastor growing up used to say, you're always going to have troubles, but you've got to be like a duck and let most of it just roll right off of your skin. Mm-hmm. Like, don't let it come into you. Like have this like film on your body, like a duck does when it gets in water, like the oils, and just let the water it hits you and it just rolls off. Like, don't let it come in, because most of the time it's going to take care of itself. And if you let everything into your body and affect your nervous system and, ruminate in your mind, you're just going to go crazy.
Yeah. That makes me think of the Stoics advice, the philosophers who, you can't care about everything or you'll go crazy.
I had a personal work situation happen to me this week, and I was talking to a friend that was kind of involved in this, and he made me remember something really beautiful about, when we ruminate over things that maybe we shouldn't. He said, it reminds me of when Christ and his disciples were in the boat and there was this big storm and Christ was just kind of chilling out, like, and everybody else in the boat's freaking out. Like, what are we supposed to do? And Christ is just like, you have to have faith. Like we're just flowing with what's happening, and we're the ones that create these, like, we have to take control of it, or we have to try to understand it. And it's like, actually, we don't. We can just let the currents of life or the storms of life that come in our way, just like peacefully roll with those and have faith that God's in control of it. Mm-hmm. That's hard to do.
Oh yeah.
But what a beautiful reminder. I completely forgot that story was, like, oh yeah, if I start stressing out about something, I should just like picture Jesus in the middle of a storm, like chilling on a boat. Like, it's cool.
Yeah. In a second, we're going to get to something he talks about, catastrophizing. And that is a personality trait that is affected by your gut microbiome too. So this was interesting. Epigenetic memory, they're talking about how traits are passed down. We talk about that in trauma-based mind control a lot because of the Monarch program. But he's agreeing with this intergenerational transmission of stress on studies of offspring of individuals who had to evacuate the WTC on September 1/1.
Okay. Yeah.
And so this made me think of like generations that had huge crises, like the HOLOCAUST
Or
or
the COLDWAR.
yes, or SLAVERY.
Yep.
So when people talk about I am still affected by this, they're right.
Yeah.
You have to
It's
deal with
coded
that.
in their nervous system. Yeah. Absolutely.
Let's see. So that's like nature versus nurture. It's both, but the things that you inherit from past generations and the things that happen to them are still happening, playing out in your genes. So let's see. Stress in the womb. Do not stress out a pregnant mother.
You know, is this true? Have you ever heard of like a pregnant mother should not go watch a scary movie, like a horror film?
I never heard that, but probably.
So I heard it when I was pregnant, because this is so funny. I was 20 and I went and saw Mothman Prophecies in the movie theater.
Yeah.
And I remember like an older lady was like, honey, you're pregnant. You're not supposed to watch scary movies. And I was like, oh, that's an old wise tale or something, you know? And now I'm like, maybe they were trying to not have the mother release fear hormones.
Yeah.
While the baby's being created, you know, like it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. So
I didn't know if you had ever heard that or not.
that's super important for her not to smoke, not to drink, not to get stressed out by, external things. And it's so scary because 80% of affairs happen when a woman is pregnant.
No way. I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. Like if
Why?
he's going to cheat, he's going to do it when you're pregnant.
Why?
Yeah. So that is like a huge stress. Like I can't think of anything more stressful.
That pisses me off and grosses me out.
Think of how many people are being produced in the world under these conditions and the quality of their genetics and makeup and environment. It's like you don't even have a chance almost.
Yeah. Like the stress hormones are going to just be released unbelievably. Like,
okay, so here's where it gets really interesting in the book. Your gut microbiota is pretty much where it's going to be when you're 3.5 years old. Like it's fully formed already because of the mother's vaginal microbiota has a major influence on the newborn's gut microbes. So that is the first thing that you're supposed to pick up from her. Going through the birth canal, you get the bacteria, and that is supposed to kickstart your immune system and your sets up your microbiome for life.
Yep.
So if you bypass this with like C-sections.
Yep.
You're out of luck, man.
So that podcast we were listening to, like, I didn't know you're supposed to do this, but when you have a baby, C-section wise, you're supposed to have the doctor or the nurses immediately swab the inside of the mouth with the woman's vaginal canal, like fluids.
Yeah. That's why.
Yeah. I didn't know that. And
also when you're going through the birth canal and all those contractions are happening, there's a flood of oxytocin that both mom and baby are supposed to get for bonding that is bypassed if you have a C-section. So baby's first microbiome and oxytocin flood are interrupted in a C-section, and then the mom's body thinks the baby died.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. So it says reductions in vaginal lactobacilli can change the acidity of the vaginal environment and predispose women to vaginal infections. So stress, you can get like yeast infections and other things, vaginosis, and if you're stressed. Mother's vagina seeds the baby's first microbiota. Many adult brain disorders, including anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, autism, IBS, are now considered neurodevelopmental disorders and can start in utero.
Whoa.
So that is really important to try as best you can to have the baby the natural way.
Yeah, it is important, but I will give credence to those who can't.
I mean, if it's life-threatening or whatever, like,
right.
Obviously.
But if you can't, at least now you know to have your baby swapped. Like, yes. And if you don't know anything about that, just start researching it because, again, the more you know.
Mm-hmm. Your mother's distinct set of microbes form the basis of your own distinct pattern for the rest of your life. That is so crazy.
Yeah. Let's see. I have one last really conspiratorial point I want to make.
Okay.
But I don't want to interrupt your note flow.
That's fine. Keep going. I'm just looking for more nuggets out of this book that I thought were interesting.
Okay. So one of the noted microbiome killers is living in a aseptic environment because it inhibits the microbiome diversity that we're supposed to pick up in everyday life. So think about what's happening right now in the world. You literally move 2 inches and people are like, oh, here's hand sanitizer. Here's hand sanitizer. Little Jimmy, come over here. Here's hand sanitizer. And so we are creating this culture of people just killing germs all over their hands and arms and out of fear. And it's inhibiting our microbiome diversity to exist. So we're supposed to go put dirt in our mouths and we're supposed to put gross things, like our body has to build up an immune system and a diverse bacteria, I would say.
Just like handshakes too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like this is all good. Like we don't need to be scared of each other, but I thought that was really interesting. Like, you know, the hand sanitizer thing came out and rolled out and was like this huge craze a couple of years ago. And now they've even come out and like, it doesn't really do anything, but people are still in that mindset. And I'm like, you're really killing your microbiome. Like, and therefore you are going to be more reactionary to the world because you don't have any serotonin production and your brain is on fire. So I just think that that's a huge, we should correlate that and maybe the way people are reacting to certain things in the ethers right now.
Yeah, because here he says, could replacing abnormal gut microbiomes with healthy ones improve not just intestinal problems, but behavior itself? And he's positing that, yes, it will help you be a better person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm out of notes.
That's okay. We're almost done with this book. I said, let's see, gut feelings reflect an extensive and often deeply personal body of wisdom that we have access to and that we trust more than the advice provided by family members, highly paid advisors, or self-declared experts on social media. So this part of the book is about how much your intuitive decision-making is affected by your gut and what's in there. And I said they destroys people's intuition so they will believe lies. And that's all, right?
That's so true. Yeah. It's so true. It's so manipulative. And I just wish, I don't know what the perfect diet is for each of us individually, but I think it's worth us individually figuring that out for each other. Like we're bred was making me sick, that might not make you sick. So I have to figure out what's making me sick.
Everybody's microbiome is so different that you cannot have a one size fits all in diet. So
no, you can't.
Not everybody can do keto. Not everybody can do vegetarian. Not everybody. It just
carnivore, it's like, but I do think that having some curiosity around it is a really good way to make sure your intuition or your ability to feel through things is on point.
Mm-hmm. So on early development, he's talking about hunger is an early emotion related to survival. So it's pretty much like the first alarm that we have as a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And the gut feelings related to hunger comprise your earliest signals about what is good and bad in the world, and they begin at birth. The gut feeling of an empty stomach may be a newborn child's first negative proto-emotion, triggering an uncontrollable craving for food. The satiated feeling that follows the consumption of breast milk is likely the earliest experience of feeling good. So these are your first impressions of what's good and bad, is like, am I hungry or not hungry? And this determines how you see the world. So hangry is an actual thing.
Yeah, I experience that on occasion.
Yeah. And if you were left to cry or self-soothe or left to go hungry, this is going to affect you for the rest of your life, and how you interact with people and how you feel like your needs are met. This is the beginning of am I going to be a narcissist or not?
Yeah.
Remember Dr. Spock and those other baby child development scientists, and they're like, oh, just let your baby cry and he'll fall asleep. And
yeah, he'll learn to self-soothe. Yeah.
Sure. That is telling your baby and its physiology and its microbiome that your needs are not going to be met. You don't matter. There's nobody to take care of. All of these subconscious beliefs that you have go back to how you were handled as a baby. And so they're like, if you coddle your baby too much, then it'll be spoiled. But the opposite is true. The more that the baby feels secure, the more independent it's going to be later on, because it knows that its needs are going to be met.
Yeah, it's the baby has a good development of safety.
Mm-hmm. So this is where your gut feelings are cultivated, and how you see the world and how you survive in it. Oh yeah, catastrophizing. So I do that, and I wonder if that's me or if I need better food. But I'm seriously, I have a problem with connecting dots to the most catastrophic end.
Okay.
If I'm texting someone, I'm worried, are they going to read it in the car and get in a car crash because they were reading my stupid text?
Okay.
You know
yeah.
what I mean?
That's
it's an OCD thing that I have to talk myself out of. No, it's not going to be your fault if they die because you texted them.
Yeah. You can't time that. Yeah.
It is so bad. So I have to get over that kind of thinking.
Yeah, I don't think that way at all.
And because I don't know, it's too much responsibility that I feel like I have in just the way that the world plays out. I feel like I affect a lot of things when it's not true,
yeah.
Just because someone doesn't call me back, they're not dead.
Jamie, you do matter though. Yes.
Your food affects your dreams.
I liked that section in the book. Because Carl Jung is one of my favorite dream analysis type of psychologist. And I think there's something to dreams. I don't know what. And my spiritual father told me to ignore my dreams. And I'm like, but they're just so wild. How do I ignore those? In the realm of psychology, I think that there's a lot that we can dream, and then we can psychoanalyze into specific maybe issues that are popping up in our lives that maybe we unconsciously or consciously are aware of.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, food does determine a lot of that.
Because it says the brain-gut microbiota axis is more active during sleep than at any other time. So that's when your gut and your brain are really talking to each other.
Yeah. And that's why it's so important to not eat so much before you go to bed, because your brain and if think about your digestive system is like working all the time to like break down foods and figure out what is toxins and what aren't. And you just keep eating and keep eating and keep eating. Like, you're not giving your digestive system a rest. And then you wake up and then you immediately start putting coffee or breakfast, or that's why I think intermittent fasting is kind of a really good idea. I don't do it strictly, but I just naturally don't want food in the morning until almost about 10:30. And I try to eat pretty early at night. So there is a window of time there where I think I'm giving my body enough of a break, but who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely try to pick a time and not snack or have anything to eat, like maybe after, 7 or 8 or something, just to have that feeling of hunger. I think that's really important to let your body get to that point.
Yeah.
Before you eat. So let's get to how do you change this? Like, if you are all messed up and if you're a gorgeous, gorgeous girl with IBS or whatever, how can we start to reverse this? It all begins, like I said, in utero. And then if you were breastfed or not, that makes a huge difference on your immune system. And so his suggestions were not that
on point. I think a lot of it's just food.
Yeah, they're not like that deep. But then, this was interesting. Okay, so real fast, artificial sweeteners are death. Basically.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
do not eat saccharin, sucralose, aspartame, which aspartame is actually E. coli poop. Right?
Oh, what?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
That E. coli that makes you real sick.
Yeah.
You don't want it at all. They take this and they cultivate it and they poop out some chemical and they scoop that up and they make aspartame out of it. So anytime you turn over, and they put that in everything, like gum.
Yeah.
Energy drinks. So if it has aspartame on it, throw it away. It says, when you consume artificial sweeteners, your body enlists your gut microbiota to harvest more calories in the colon from your microbial metabolic products to compensate for the missing sugar available in your small intestine. So diet soda is terrible. Emulsifiers, look for those. Do not eat things with glyphosate. All that kills. Oh, and the glyphosate, it kills the good stuff and leaves the bad stuff.
Oh, yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you literally will just have bad bacteria in your gut.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Parkinson's comes from this. Let's see. So basically, you want to be eating foods about where you live, local produce, locally grown, organic things.
Yeah, organic. Make sure, this is a good rule of thumb that someone taught me one time, and maybe this isn't true, but maybe it is. But when you're going to the grocery store and you're like, everything's so expensive if it's organic. Well, like, don't buy organic bananas, because even if I don't know if this is true or not, but this is the way I shop. Like, my berries are like exposed. So I want to make sure I'm not getting fruits that have been directly exposed, but things like kiwis or bananas or oranges that have like a shell that you've got to pop the fruit out of, you don't have to be so careful about, just because, and maybe it does saturate, but in my brain, I'm like, oh, it's safe. It has a shell around it and I've got to pop it out of its shell.
Okay. So
I don't, maybe somebody knows something I don't, but that's the way I think when I'm shopping.
okay. So it says we are exposed to more chemicals and drugs than any people who ever lived. That's true. He's real big on the Mediterranean diet, which I like because it's just like a little bit of everything, plus a lot of olive oil and locally grown things. Where is that table that he? So also, you want to be sharing meals with people that make you feel good. You want that serotonin up to help you digest things. And so that your body is able to digest. You don't want to be in upsetting, stressful situations. You want to be relaxed. You want to be maybe have just exercised. You want to be in a celebratory mood. That's why we eat a lot with other people, because we are pumped just to be around our friends, or like feast days or coffee hour. All of those are optimal times to eat. He says, avoid mass-produced processed foods. That's easy. Eat fermented foods and probiotics. Practice organic farming. So kimchi, sauerkraut, kombucha, and miso, yogurt, kefir, cheeses, and prebiotics is something you need. Smaller portions, fasting to starve your bad microbes and allow the good ones to populate. Don't eat when you're stressed, angry, or sad. If you eat when you're happy, your brain sends signals to your gut that you can think of as special ingredients that spice up your meal and please your microbes. So I always had this joke, like when I learned about probiotics and like yogurt and that it's living, you know, I'm like, argue around the yogurt, you're upsetting it. Like, I don't want to eat it.
Yeah.
But that kind of makes sense because, you know, those experiments that they did on water, that your intentions and your mood and your words have a effect on
direct correlation. Yeah.
How much more can it have on your little yogurt
microbes?
Yeah.
Oh,
let's see. Smaller meals. Become an expert in listening to your gut feelings.
Yeah.
And then
I think that's just being in, like, when I do have the sugar cravings, I'm like, do I give into that or do I not? And so what I've started to do is get like a sugar-free like chocolate bar, because that's what I think I want, is like something sweet, right? Mm-hmm. But really what my body wants is sugar. So I'm still giving it something sweet, but either like super low in sugar or no sugar. So
I do have a huge sweet tooth, but the way that I mitigate that is like, I will have my sweet thing before dark.
Okay.
Or at a time where I know it's going to get burned off by my activity.
Yeah.
So like, okay, today's cookie is at 4:00 because I've been running around all day and I can still before I go to bed. So like, I kind of, you know, bargain with myself because I love sugar.
But. I get it.
And it's funny because I took this Ayurvedic body assessment a long time ago, and it was like, you love sugar. I'm like, yeah, I do. And it says, you need to avoid sugar because your personality is too sweet and pleasing. That if you have too much sugar, you can become a doormat. So what you need to do is eat more spicy food so that you get a little sassy and counterbalance that tendency.
Maybe I need more sweets.
Yeah, so it's like avoid sweets and eat more spicy because you're already sweet enough. But that was a
you are pretty sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
Yeah.
And, one last thing. Okay, so that show you sent me, it says you don't need all those fancy probiotics that have like 1,000 million strains advertised.
Like 50 what was it? CBUs or IBUs?
Yeah, like cultures per whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so the main one you need is Bacillus. And then there's a really good one that they sell at thriveprobiotic.com. And if you're going to take probiotics, do one that's like one at a time.
Because there's a lot of like scammy probiotics that you take these, and then the probiotic like the aliveness of it is dead before it gets to your stomach.
Yeah. And they were saying like, I mean, if you have to refrigerate it from shelf to your mouth, like your stomach's just going to kill it anyway. So you're wasting your money on these.
Yeah. Cause we're at 98 degrees. So that's a marketing fad. So don't like waste your money. Cause I've noticed that the ones in the refrigerator at like Whole Body, like in the fridge section, are usually more expensive because you think, oh, it has something special in it where it's got to be refrigerated. Yeah. It's like, no, that's not true.
Right. So remember, this is an industry. So be discerning in the probiotics that you're taking, but definitely try and get some more. Acidophilus and Bacillus is the main ones that they recommend. So thank you so much for recommending the show, and thank everybody for coming, and we love your guts. And next week, we're going to do something super fun. We're going to play a conspiracy card game and see how knowledgeable we are on all of the array.
You're so going to win. I'm going to study so hard.
So tune in for that. And this is Out of This World. Thank you so much, and good night.